Hello, my name is Dom here at BigShots, and today I will be going over the disassembly and assembly of the AR platform. Today's rifle is going to be the Springfield Armory Saint. It's one of their new rifles, and it's a very well built one. All right, first thing we're going to do to start this instructional video is I'm going to go ahead and clear this rifle. First step, I'm going to grab the charging handle and pull it rearward, and I'm going to flip the rifle over so you can see here. I'm going to take the bolt release and I'm going to press it so that the bolt remains locked in a rearward position, at which point I can take the charging handle and release it. Now I've visually and physically inspected the chamber, made sure there's no magazine present, there is no source of ammunition, and this rifle is clear. All right, to begin my disassembly, I'm simply going to grab my charging handle, pull it to the rear, and send my bolt forward. AR platforms are broken down into three groups. You have the upper receiver, the lower receiver, and the bolt operating or bolt carrier group. To get to those components, I have two pins I need to access located on the lower receiver, both near the front, near the handguard, and the back, near the pistol grip. These two pins will be depressed in this order. I'm going to start with the one closest to me as I was shooting. I'm going to push it inward, hopefully depressing it enough to whereby I can rotate the firearm and grab it from the back end. What I'm about to do is break this rifle down into what's called the shotgun style. What I have here in my bottom hand would be the lower receiver, the trigger, the hammer, the safety, all of the components that make it possible to send a round down range. And what I have here in my upper hand would be my upper receiver, my bolt carrier group, and my charging handle. It's also referred to as a T-handle. So we're going to put the upper and lower receiver to the side for a moment and focus on the most important component of this AR. What I'm holding now is the bolt carrier group. The reason it's called the bolt carrier group is that it is a bolt comprised of an extractor, firing pin, and the necessary pins that hold together this entire piece of equipment. It also has a gas rod up front that allows for the hot gases to cycle back, whereby allowing the firearm to send itself to the rear, rechambering another round. Starting with the disassembly, I need to remove a firing pin retaining pin. It's a very small cotter pin. It's a pain in the butt to get out. Now, if you've got a bullet with a nice round tip or even a pen that will work today, I get to use my also at BigShots blade tech knife. I'm going to reach into the housing here and gently, so as not to damage the finish, remove the retaining pin. It should come out quite easily. Once I've started it, I'm going to reach in and remove it the rest of the way with my fingers. I'm going to put this to the side. It's a very important piece of equipment, and if I lose it, I cannot complete my reassembly. Now, I can give several strikes. As you can see there, it's more than one to come out, on the bottom end of my carrier group. My firing pin comes out and should come out quite easily. If in the future you find it hard to remove your firing pin, the chances that there's a tremendous amount of carbon buildup inside are very, very good, and that is the reason why it's not coming out freely. I'm going to go ahead and put my firing pin to the side and focus on the remaining pieces of my bolt carrier group. I have another retaining pin that holds into place the firing pin group itself, whereby the firing pin is allowed to travel through a channel and exit here at the teeth, as well as the extractor itself. That retaining pin must be elevated and must be turned 90 degrees away from the face of the bolt carrier group. Once I make that turn, I'm simply going to depress my firing pin group and give it a nice tap in the palm of my hand. That pin should fall out quite easily as well. I'm about to remove the firing pin group from my bolt carrier group, and I can put this piece to the side. There's no more components that I as a shooter should be messing with outside of a certified gunsmith. There is one final piece that needs to come out of this firing pin group, and I'm going to return to my firing pin itself. At this point, I have not used a single tool to disassemble this rifle. It can be done with your bare hands or utilizing some of the components that you'll find within the firearm itself. Now, there is a two-sided opening here on the firing pin group. It's going to allow me to remove the extractor. Some rifles are set up with a left to right orientation, meaning the pin can only be removed left to right or can only be inserted right to left. In this case, I'm going to give it a shot and see which way it is. I'm using my firing pin, the tip. I'm not aggressively punching it out. I'm simply allowing for the firing pin to allow me to get into this very small hole to push that pin out. At the same time, I'm placing positive pressure on the back end of my extractor so that the spring is compressed and tension is taken off of that particular pin. I want to be very careful when doing this because this pin is very, very easy to lose. On this particular model, again, it's a very brand new rifle, and these pieces are fit together very, very well, but also at this point, very, very hard to remove. Now, I have another thing that I can do. Well, my firing pin has a rather large surface face that comes down from the actual tip of the firing pin. What I'm going to do now is show you how you can use your cotter pin to remove the actual firing pin retaining pin. This cotter pin will fit inside the channel, and since it's small enough, I can use that to forward my assist and remove my extractor pin retaining pin. I know I've said pin a lot of times. There's a lot of working components here. I should be left with 3 pieces. The pin itself, which is quite small, and again, very easy to lose, so put that in a cap, put that in a small jar. I have the extractor in my hand here. It has a small spring at the back allowing it to apply upward tension. And I have the firing pin group itself. It should be completely empty and completely devoid of any more pieces that I'm going to remove. I want to make sure this is clean. I want to make sure this is clear. I want to make sure that I have no fouling, no carbon, no copper debris that's built up inside. When I'm doing this, again, if there are pieces that are in there, I can use a small Q-tip, I can use an air compressor, I can use different cleaning devices, even an AP or application brush to remove those pieces. Once I'm done, I'm going to lightly lubricate the external and internal piece here before reapplying the extractor. Now, again, this time, in order to avoid the mistake I made earlier by not putting enough pressure on it, I have grasped the extractor firmly in my right hand, and I'm now going to reinsert the extracting pin retaining pin. This should go in quite smoothly, and this time, in fact, it is much easier for me to reinsert. There's no distance, per se, in the book that you're going to ever find as to how far you should reinsert that pin. The rule of thumb is such. You want to make sure that it is flush on both sides and not protruding from either the left or the right side. Excellent. I've completed my group. I'm now ready to reinsert it into my bolt carrier group. It is easy to see that on this one there are 2 holes, one on the side facing you now, and as I rotate it, a second and equally open side. As I reinsert it, I want to make sure that, hey, it should be able to spin freely. I can apply lubrication to it to allow it to do so and allow it to function smoothly. The pin I'm now holding in my hand is the firing group retaining pin. This is going to allow that group to remain inside the bolt carrier group. I'm going to attempt to place it inside the holes I just showed you. This is and should be a very smooth process. However, if it doesn't immediately insert, it's because you have orientated or rotated that group the wrong direction. Give it a complete 180 turn and reinsert the pin. It should go in quite smoothly. What I'm going to do now is, again, take this pin, and because it's in the up and down position here, it is aligned with the operating group or bolt carrier group, as you can see. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. This prevents it from falling back out of the operating group. My next step, I need to reinsert my firing pin and my firing pin retaining pin. There's 2 methods I can do this with. I can either grasp both openings on my operating group and drop it right in, give it a couple of twirls, and hopefully it lines up, and in this case it did. Or I can simply take my firing pin and drop it in the side. There is no wrong way to insert it if you're using either of those methods. I've reinserted my firing pin, and I'm going to give it a slight tap to make sure that it has seated itself fully inside my bolt carrier group. I'm now ready to insert my firing pin retaining pin. I've reinserted, and I give it a couple of twirls just to make sure it seats itself. Once it is inside, it should be flush against the operating group. Now, what I need to do is make sure that all my components are not only properly inserted, but also not going to fall free. I give my operating group a couple of taps. My firing pin did not remove itself. I'm also going to flick my wrist and attempt to make my extractor and my firing pin group extend from the bolt carrier group. In this case, I was successful, and in the old operating group, bolt carrier group has been reassembled correctly. Now, coming back to my prior 2 components, what I'm going to do is reinsert my bolt carrier group into my AR platform. Again, this is the Springfield Armory Saint. It's a great AR platform, and most of the ARs out there on the market right now will disassemble and reassemble the exact same way. If there's a couple intrinsic details that are different about each of them, but for the most part, you can utilize this guide for your AR platform at home. First, I'm going to reinsert my charging handle. Once I have it inserted, I'm going to want to line up the gas tube of my bolt carrier group with the channel on my charging handle. If the extractor and a firing pin group is inserted or is compressed into the bolt carrier group, it will not fit back into the upper receiver. So first, I'm going to want to either push it out with my fingers, or I can, again, snap my wrist, extending it completely. Once it is extended, it should fit smoothly into my upper receiver. At which point, I will close and return both the operating group and my charging handle to their foremost position, and I will take my lower receiver and bring it back down on my rifle. At this point, I'm going to take my disassembly pin and insert it fully. I have completed the assembly of my AR. What I'm going to do now is a function check. The very first step, again, take your charging handle, draw it rearward. Take your firearm, place it on fire. Now, what I'm going to do is attempt to dry fire. At this point, I've already made sure that my firearm is clear, and this is not a process that requires the use of live ammunition. I attempt to fire, I have an audible click. Excellent. I take my charging handle, I draw it rearward again, I attempt to fire, and I should receive yet another click. This time I'm going to hold the trigger to the rear, recharge my charging handle, and now as I release the trigger, I'm listening for an audible clunk. I've received the clunk. The third time, charge my charging handle, take my firearm, place it on safe. The firearm did not dry fire, therefore I know that my firearm not only was reassembled correctly, but will function smoothly and efficiently the next time I have to utilize it.